How's it going? This is Keanu Yamamoto with the Coaches Podcast, sitting here with Coach Scott Criner, former head coach at Rocky Mountain High School in Boise, Idaho. Coach Criner has had an illustrious career at all levels, with even a stint coaching receivers for the Las Vegas Outlaws in the XFL. Coach Criner won a state title for Rocky back in 2015 and was the OC for 3 other state championships, 1 at Eagle High School, 2 at Rocky. Coach, thanks for jumping on. Please tell us about your family, your journey, your background, all that good stuff.
Well, I was a college coach for 27 seasons. Fortunately, I was able to meet Leslie Peterson along the way, and she became my wife. With her, we had 2 beautiful children, Nicole, and who's married to Joel Snyder, and Nicole Criner, and then Matthew Criner, who's getting married this summer to Miss Ivy Wing. So my journey in coaching was college coach. All I ever wanted to be. Knowing the 3rd grade, I wanted to be a college coach. My uncles were college coaches. My dad was a high school coach. I knew, like I said, I remember telling my dad what I wanted for Christmas, and we got this game that you could design a play, and you slid it in on one side, and then the other person would draw the defense, and they'd slide it on the other side. And I was so excited for it, and it was probably the only Christmas gift I ever cried about, because my uncles and my dad played it the night before and drew all the things in for me, and I was like really pissed because I wanted to do it. But I also knew at that point I was going to be I wanted to be a college coach. I wanted to be like my Uncle Jim and my dad and my Uncle Walt. Then I was able to do that for a long period of time. Had some really great stops along the way. And then I decided I really liked my family and wanted to see my wife and daughter born. I took the head coaching job at Timberline High School originally, and then went back to college, and then came back to coaching at Eagle. Then from Eagle, got the head job at Rocky, and enjoyed since 2013 being at Rocky Mountain High School.
That's awesome, Coach. So you mentioned 27 years in college game, 45 years total in coaching. Is that correct?
This is number 45 as a coach. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you kind of talk about some of your different stops along the way? I know you coached at Northern Arizona. I know you were calling plays at Sac State, Cincinnati. I guess what has been, your most enjoyable stop?
I really enjoyed Boise State. Was my favorite place. I coached Boise State on 2 different staffs. Actually 3 different staffs, because I was there with Jim. That's how I got started. My Uncle Jim hired me as a student assistant. And I was there from into 1980 all the way to 83. And then from there, went to University of Cincinnati. In that process, Lyle Settensetch had taken over the program, and got an opportunity as a recruiter, basically, what got me hired at Cincinnati. And I was at Cincinnati for 6 seasons, if I remember right, 6 to 7 seasons. And then from Cincinnati, took a job at University of Pacific with Walt Harris. Was with Walt until Walt left for the New York Jets, and then Chuck Shelton was hired. I was with Chuck for 3 years, and then I took a job with Charlie Weatherby at Utah State. I was replacing Jim Zorn, and was hired, and was actually in the process of moving. My wife and I had just put down a deposit on a condo in Logan, and then it was New Year's Eve night. Charlie calls, and he's whistling acres away on the phone, says, "We're off to Navy." And then I went to Naval Academy, got through about 3 months, and then took a job with Pokey Allen's staff back at Boise State, I wanted to get back. My dad was associate athletic director, and my wife was from Boise. I made that decision, and it was probably turned out to be the worst decision. I know that's one of your questions down the line, because I really, really enjoyed Paul Johnson and the other guys on the offensive staff at Navy, but couldn't see my way through it. Then from Boise State, went on to Northern Arizona, back to the XFL. Actually did a little scouting local here in the state of Idaho and Washington with the Kansas City Chiefs, doing some stuff for a guy by the name of Lynn Beatty, who was was working with the Chiefs, so I'd go do some games for them. I took the XFL. I was fortunate enough to get a 2-year contract, and they paid me. So I was the highest paid high school coach in the state of Idaho for 1 whole year, because I could take that money. And I enjoyed having that. And then from there, went to Eagle. No, actually from Timberline, went to Sacramento State. Then Sac State, came back, went to Eagle High School, where we had a lot of success with Paul Peterson, a very dear friend. Then we beat this new school called Rocky Mountain when they had a bunch of studs. We beat them, and the job opened up, and I got hired at Rocky, and Stayed at Rocky until 2016, left for a year to be the athletic director at Eagle. And then after doing that for about 4 months, I knew I did not want to do it. So I went back to Rocky as the offensive coordinator for Chris Kulig, another good friend. And when Chris left to go to Bishop Kelly, I took the head coaching job again. A lot of stops along the way.
You got that dialed in, though. You got that dialed in. I don't think there was any hesitation in between, whether you're thinking where your next stop was. I mean, you got that dialed in. A lot of stops. As a young coach like myself, and for some of the young coaches, that are coming up, where at least for me was, I wanted to climb the ladder as quickly as I could. And I think that perspective has definitely changed once once we had 2 kids, yep. I guess my why changed. So talking about your why, why did you get into coaching? I know you mentioned that you came from a long lineage of coaches, your uncle coach, your dad coach, but what was the why behind wanting to coach?
I love the game. That number one, I really love the game of football. And when my wife was asking me last night, there was something on TV about what's your passion? And I asked her, what do you think my passion is? And she said, well, I think it's me. But then she said, but I also know football. She said, she's worried with me going into retiring. And she says, I wonder if your passion is going to leave. I said, no, I still be there. I'll still be. I just don't want to be a head coach anymore. But I knew I wanted to be a coach because of what it does, the lessons that it teaches. I've never looked at our program and said it's about the wins and losses. That's a byproduct. It's our program. Every place I've been, it's about the development of young men, making them better young men. And I love that aspect of it. And that's something that was passed down to me through my father, my uncles, both Walt and Jim. And I just felt like that was an opportunity for me to have an impact. And I knew that as a teacher and a coach, I could have a huge impact on a high school community. And so that's been my why. That's what I love. I like what it does when I see kids that have played for me, back in 2007 or 2009. Heard from running back at Cincinnati, Larry Cry, talking about my connection with him and helping him get to where he, is today. Those things are really important to me, and that means way more than the state championships or the bowl games and all that fun stuff.
A lot of coaching stops. Advice to younger coaches as far as taking the right job and not just taking a job to take a job.
I can tell you we all have a vision of what it's supposed to look like, I think, in our own heads. And like my vision, like I made the comment when I was at Naval Academy with Charlie, I couldn't see myself in that role. It was an academy, and the recruiting never stopped. The budget was unlimited, so you could go anywhere at any time, but you were at the most prestigious university, I think, in the United States. The Naval Academy is unbelievable, and I don't think that the opportunities there are talked about enough, other than it's a great academic school. And I couldn't see myself through to stay there with Paul Johnson. If I had stayed with Paul, I probably would have been able to go to Georgia Tech and retire as a college coach, making a lot more money than what I did as a high school coach, but maybe not the same impact that I had. And I would just say to coaches, the grass isn't always greener. And we see it all the time where guys will be at a job and they take the next job and they're having success at a job, and all of a sudden they get to the next one, they find out it's a whole different ball game, and it doesn't fit their personality. And I remember when I came as a high school coach, I was told by a lawyer friend here in town who was with the National Football Foundation, and he said, I hope you understand that you're meant to be a high school coach. You're really good connecting with kids. And I remember at the time thinking, no, you have no idea. I'm a college guy. I want to get back to college game. And it wasn't until about halfway through my stint there at Eagle that I said, I am a high school coach. This is a good spot. And I think if I'm advising young guys, I'd tell them, make sure you look at the whole picture. It isn't always about the job, the university, the uniform, the stadium, the prestige. It's about the right fit for you, especially when you have a family. I like my daughter. I've got great memories of my daughter at Northern Arizona, me going through walkthroughs and holding her one arm and passing her to Francis St. Paul and Ronnie Jenkins and our quarterback, Trevor Brown, and those guys holding her as we're walking through and I'm talking to her walkthrough. And those things impacted my relationship with my daughter in a really positive way. and Northern Arizona was a better stop and a better job for me than, say, going to the XFL. And so, and I, again, wasn't able to see that at that time because I thought, man, pro football, here we go. And I never worked so hard in my life. Not that I am afraid of hard work, but it wasn't the right fit for my family.
I appreciate you sharing that, Coach. Athletic director for a little bit, longtime head coach. When you're looking for assistants to hire, what are some of those qualities that you're looking for in an assistant?
For me, it's the ability to teach. Are you innovative? Are you in it for the right reasons? Are you in it? A lot of guys want to get into the coaching because they want to call plays, and not everybody can call a play. And it's a learned art. Not everybody has that ability to go out and see the field and understand, where's the next place you should go. And so for me, I wanted to get guys, one, I wanted to work with. I enjoyed when we went through the interview process. I really enjoyed the personality. And then when I ask certain questions about their teaching styles, I want them to show me how they're going to teach. Because one true thing you can always say about football is what you see on film is who you are. And if your kids can't get the translation from the coach and then take that and put it out on the field, then you have, I think, an average or poor teacher. And I want a guy that teaches with energy, that the kids want to play for. I always look at our coaching staff. I'm doing evaluations, end of season evaluations now, and I go back and I'm thinking about moments where I saw our offensive line coach taking a minute, put his arm around a kid, talk to him about how he approached it. Our safeties coach, Quentin Michael, with the young freshman safety, taking a minute. He really, some guys would lose their brain. The kid made a mistake, and that's just not who our coaches were. Our coaches did a great job of taking that personal touch and coaching our kids on an individual basis. And I look for guys that can do that. Are you able to look and say, this guy can be coached different than that guy? And sometimes that's something that comes with age. Sometimes guys just have that natural ability. I'm not really looking for rah-rah guys. I don't need a guy that's running around just getting all hyped up and bouncing around because the kids are different, I think, today. And I don't think that it's necessarily what we say, it's what they see. And making sure that when you're coaching, they know that you care about them, then they'll play for you. And that's what I look for. I want assistant coaches that can show that they can make that feel like it's a collaboration with the young man as opposed to a direction.
That's a great line. I like that collaboration as opposed to a direction. You mentioned kids are different nowadays, right? Been in it for 47 years. Can you kind of talk about the differences in the athlete from when you first initially started, 2025?
Yeah. When I first started, the kids played multiple sports. When I'd go as a recruiter, I could watch a kid wrestle. I could watch a kid play basketball. I could go to a track meet. Those things were all great evaluation tools. We've gotten to a point, 7-on-7 world, personal trainers, everybody, there's a lot of pieces that are involved. And with that, everybody's looking for instant gratification. Everything's at their fingertips. I was a teacher since 2007, so I wasn't a teacher for a long piece of my career. Taught, and the kids, when I first started teaching, they'd walk in the classroom and you tell them to put their phones away. And then after a while, you start thinking about the computers that are in their hand, and that's available to them. So how do I best do this so that they feel enabled and not enabled, if they felt trusted that I could let them use that computer that was at their fingertips. And then COVID came along and COVID put everybody on the internet, right? And so every kid had a laptop. And so the phones weren't quite as a necessity. But because of that, kids could see things and watch things. And the football acumen piece over the years has changed. Kids aren't watching college football on a Saturday like they used to. And so their knowledge of the game is really based on what that individual personal trainer's teaching them. And so with that, and like I said, that lack of participation in other sports, sometimes some of the skills, if I'm a wide receiver, I'd play basketball. There's no question in my brain, just because that hand-eye coordination and that ability to move with or without the ball helps you find space on a basketball court. It does translate to a football field. And a lot of kids will say, no, I'm in 7-on-7. I'm not going to play basketball. And so that's changed. Big linemen, watching them be able to get on a wrestling mat and learn how to leverage and do things that help them, that also translates to football. You don't see that anymore. And because of that, the kids today are, I think, they might be certain skills, but they're not better at, some of the skills that really translate to being a great football player. And that's what I'm looking at.
How did you kind of formulate your philosophy?
Probably the number one thing philosophically for me is selflessness.
Yeah.
You need to be selfless, and that means you need to be a part of a team, and you got to buy in, and you got to know what your role is and how you best can make the team better. And our philosophy, we went through a process up with an idea called Uncommon, and we created a program here at the school where we ask our kids to do the uncommon thing. That means get up at 5 in the morning and go to a weight room Monday through Thursday. Monday to Thursday, Friday, weight room, and then they run home, shower, and come back to school. We ask them not to be tardy, not to be the positive side, not the negative side. The teacher asks you to do something, that's a yes, ma'am, yes, sir. The Uncommon program put an emphasis on GPA. It's a 3.4 GPA, not extraordinarily high, but if you're a 3.4, that's rare because in today's society, especially since COVID, there's a lot of kids out there as a teacher that they're willing to be okay to get that C, and that's enough. I don't need to drive for that B. If I do get a B, it's because I asked for it, not because I've earned it. So we wanted to have kids that they would strive to be that 3.4 or better GPA, which helped raise our overall team GPA. We ask them to be involved in the Rocky Mountain High School community. So we tell them, hey, we want you to attend 6 non-athletic events. So go watch the choir, go watch the band, go watch the play, be a part of our school community. If the kids are showing animals at the fair, go be a part of that. Go cheer them on and give them a high five and let them know you want them at your game on a Friday night. And let's make sure that we're committed to that. So our kids bought into that where they'd have to go see 6 events. And then we asked them to pick 2 winter, 2 spring, and then we decided to take it up to 4 winter. Where they would go and support the basketball team. If you could not get credit, you get 1 boys basketball, you get 1 girls basketball, 1 wrestling event, and then you could have one of those others that you could go back for a second time. And then in the spring, baseball, lacrosse, rugby, track. We wanted them to go at softball. They wanted them to go attend those events and a pillar of our community. And then the last piece was 7 hours of community service where they go out and might be moving desks at the elementary school. It might be working at the winter holiday festival at their elementary school. It might be reading at the elementary school. And those things became became a fixture with Rocky, where when I signed off on any huddle message, it says uncommon, because that isn't common with our kids. They're not selfless that way. And our kids bought into that. And again, it was Chris Kuling who came up with that plan. And then we carried it on. It's now a tradition. I know the guy that comes into this school, our parents can continue that. And the kids who are uncommon get to have special privileges within the program, but it also has spilled over to really having football teams that they were selfless. That's been the funnest part of the last couple of their approach. And so that what you see on the website, it just grew. And that creating, what do you want? Not just in the football player, what do I want in the kids when he leaves my program? What do I want to see in my community? And to hear the compliments from our teachers and from our administrators about how good our kids are and how nice they are. Our kids would go watch a basketball game at Meridian High School, for example. After the game, they're cleaning up the bleachers. And our kids were doing that, and it wasn't my idea, it was their idea. They're helping clean up the stuff that they dropped in the bleachers because it could help the custodian. And they weren't getting credit for it. And you saw it on the football field when our guys tackled somebody and all of a sudden they reached down and they helped the other guy up. And it's not stand over the guy like a dog. I'm in this game, I play the game with my pads, my actions speak louder than words, and that selflessness shows through.
For lack of a better word, what were maybe some of the repercussions if you didn't follow through with uncommon?
The kids that struggled with the uncommon had to do with the hours. It'd be the spending of the hours in the weight room. So you had to get 85% of all the lifting opportunities. And we gave credit for playing a spring sport, because we really push our kids participate in winter and spring sports. If it was me, every kid would play football, go to basketball, then go out and run track. Or football, wrestling, and then go out and run track, or play tennis, or be a part of something else on our campus. And the repercussions, that came with the kids who got caught up into the 7-on-7 world. They sometimes they didn't make all their hours because of the weight room, but it was never the guys that were the guys. The guys that were the guys they're always getting uncommon. You might have a kid who struggles academically and he really puts in that time. And for him to get a 3.0, he'd really have to bust his fanny to get that done. They made the rule so that you get a 3.4 GPA for a semester. So your spring semester, if I could pull the 3.4, so it made it so that kid who might be writing that 2.8, 2.9, all of a sudden he pops a 4.2 GPA for a spring. He got uncommon. So the negative repercussions, there really wasn't any, other than you always get some kids that are willing to accept the fact that they aren't uncommon and they don't make that effort, but that shows through on the football field as well. So, that kid sometimes not the guy you got to trust on 3rd and 1, right? So I want the guy who wants to achieve at the highest level. And I'm really proud of the fact that we'd on average have about 40 plus of our kids earn the uncommon. And that was a huge thing. And for me, it was kind of shy because that number goes up every year. Somebody else buys into it. Somebody else jumps on board.
That's cool, Coach. What is one thing that you know now about being a head coach that you wish you knew day one?
How much time it takes away from your family. Yeah. When I first did it, I was just excited. It's football, right? And it's all the lists. It's all the things you have to do within your school district. The bigger the district, probably the more things you can't do that maybe some of the other schools in the state can. I wish that if I knew today, but if I'd known that my first year, we've always had success everywhere I've been. At Timberline, when I went to Timberline, they had won a game and they had won 3 games in the 8-year school history. I don't think had 3 victories. My first year, I was 5-4, and I could have been the mayor of that side of town. And second year, we're 8-2. I think that maybe at that point in my life, I was too much about the W's and not as much about the development. And I would say that me going back to Sacramento State helped me see that. Being around Paul Peterson when I came back from Eagle High School helped me see that. Seeing how someone else ran a program and the reasons why. I wish I had known those things when I first started because I would have been even better at Timberline.
All right. Kind of a 2-part question here. If you could go back and play for any coach, who would it be? And if you could go back and coach any player, who would that be?
I go back and play for any coach. You're talking about coaches I played for? The guys that were
or not necessarily that you've played for. It could be a national coach, someone that you've kind of admired or respected from afar. Could be someone that's younger than you. Could be someone that's, old, like Paul Bear or Bear Bryant.
When I grew up, when I was a kid, I always wanted to play for Emory Bellard. He was the head coach at that time at Texas A&M, and I was an option quarterback in high school. And he was like my hero, man. I thought I never missed a Texas A&M game on TV, and that was who I wanted to at that time. Didn't know anything about his coaching philosophy other than he ran the wishbone, and that's what I saw myself as. I had a chance. Ralph was not head coach; he was the offensive line coach, and then became a defensive coach at UCLA. And they had a quarterback named John Shira, and then Mark Harmon, the actor, and I'd get to go down for 2 weeks in my spring, to go down 1 week missing school, 1 week my spring break, and I get to go to UCLA practice every day. And so I got a chance to be around that coaching staff, and especially those players. And I learned so much about option football just sitting in meetings with Mark Harmon and John Shira and thinking, and these guys are the greatest, right? They're the greatest ever. The coach that I always, and it's just because of everything he did at LSU and then Alabama, Nick Saban. I would love playing for Nick Saban. Nick Saban never was good enough, but I would have just loved to be there in the room and understand his focus on the process. It's not about the end result, the process, that's something that I've grabbed onto in our program and tried to emulate. And he's like, if you're asking me a coaching hero, that's my guy. Nick Saban, which I'm sure he is for a lot of people. Player-wise, I coached a kid by the name of Taylor Kelly, and Taylor Kelly went on to Arizona State. Probably the funnest football player that I've ever been around. A really talented young man, but he played the game the way the game's supposed to be played, all out. He's one of those guys that, remember one game he threw an interception. We were playing Tanner Mangum's team. And Tanner was a freshman, and it was just back and forth. And we drive down the field, and he throws an interception in the end zone. And this back in the day where they had the phone, on the sideline, and he grabs the phone, covers the phone, picks it up, and I'm waiting for him on it. And all he says to me, he goes, "Just give me the ball back." Click, hangs up. And we got the ball back for him, and he had 46 seconds to drive the length of the field. He scores on the last play of the game. Just that charisma and that enjoyment. This year we had two great kids to be around. Jax Tanner, a big offensive line candidate, is going to BYU, and then Rayshawn Jones. And Rayshawn Jones reminds me, both of them emulate different sides of what Taylor was like. And so I was blessed to have that my last year. But Taylor Kelly, I would say, number one. Coached a guy in college named Jeff Russell at University of Pacific, who was like that as well, who was phenomenal, and then went on to the XFL. And then, like I said, Nick Saban. Of course, my dad. My dad was my hero, man.
Yeah.
He was a hero.
That's cool, Coach. I appreciate you sharing that. Talk to me a little bit about your offensive philosophy. You mentioned you're an option quarterback growing up. I saw that you wrote a book with another gentleman, One Back Attack. Talk to me a little bit about your offensive philosophy, kind of how that's evolved throughout the years.
I've always believed the game for a coach, if you're a football coach and you say that, hey, I'm a run and shoot guy, and especially as a high school coach, you kind of limit yourself to what you were able to do and what you can do. Being a college coach, you have a system that you recruit to. Being a high school coach, you have a system that it has to be built around what's available. And I would say that if you were to ask me my favorite stuff, I love option football. I've had a quarterback who won the Elite 11 throwing the football, Tanner Mangum, when he transferred over to Eagle, Taylor Kelly. Those guys threw for, 3,000 yards in a 11-game season. So, I mean, we can spin the ball and throw the football. I've had Riley Bradshaw here at Rocky who could throw it. I've also had couple guys that couldn't throw the ball from here to the front door, right? But we were able to get them at a 60, 70% completion average, but they could run, right? They had great run skills. So I would say, if you're asking me what best describes us, I would say watch Gus Malzahn's stuff. I think Gus does that with his players, tries to fit people and do what they do best within a system that allows them to have success. One of the things that drives me, when I was an athletic director, I remember speaking to a bunch of ADs, and one of them had a coaching search on it, and he said, "So if you give me some advice, what would you say?" I said, "Well, if the guy walks in and tells you this is what he is, don't hire him. What you want to do is hire the guy that says, I don't know. I got to see what the talent level is." But that's the guy you want to at least give a shot to and see if he fits with the kids. There's some great quarterbacks that go through that can really spin it. They go on to college, but they can't stay standing up. And people say, "Well, I got that quarterback, and we're going to throw the football, throw the ball." And all we did defensively was go sack him, 7, 8 times. And that to me wasn't real smart on their part, because he also had some skill sets that let him run and do some things. Plus, they had the ability to run block. And it's the hardest skill to teach, I think, in football, is teaching a kid how to be an offensive lineman and back up and protect. And we've been blessed to have a great O-line coach at Rocky. And like I said, if we can throw the ball, I'd love to be 50-50. Schematically, though, we're going to have an option base to our package at some point. Love RPO package, you name it, we've done it. And it's really based on just whatever our kids can do. I could show you 8 playbooks from 8 years, and they're all completely different except for the offensive line schemes. Offensive line schemes have stayed consistent, and we know how to make those things the right answer versus the defense we're seeing. Enough to get it was running the ball, it was run the ball. If it's throwing the ball, then we threw it.
On the same subject of offensive philosophy, you go into a game and the parameters are you can only run one formation the whole game. What would that formation be and why?
I like 10 personnel.
Yeah.
3-by-1.
Open? Yeah, I
Open.
guess that is open. Yeah, that's a stupid question. Okay.
3-by-1.
Why?
It's just a numbers game in the box. And unless they're just physically better than you, we have a nice little package we call Indy that it's all ISO based. We're going to be doing announcements here in this thing.
No doubt.
It's an ISO game. It's ISO blocking scheme, and we're just looking at the box, counting numbers, and then it's quick RPO type base throws out of it, whether it's a stick concept, a slant concept, the single receiver side's access. So we always tell our quarterback the access overrules all. I wrote an article back when I was doing that book, Leaving the XFL. We called it that time the gift. And
You said gift?
Yeah, we called it the gift. That was our term. I had not heard that term before that time. saying I invented it, but the gift was, if they're going to give it to you, throw it, right? They take that throw at the gift, and it overrules all. And over the years, it just evolved into access, because we'd run glances and goes and outs, but we just said whatever that matchup was to the boundary. And then to the field side, we're going to see how you handle it. You drop a safety down. And if you did that, then we'd do some type of rub concept, stick concept, or slant concept to the field. And then we started getting into moving that inside receiver, and then, over, and then bringing him back, and then using him and running some option phase off it. So as we had quarterbacks that maybe weren't as effective throwing the football, then we would run it as an option and read the defensive end on a give, veer scheme it, and then have a little now screen out to the side with the quarterback using his feet. And so we had the +1 effect from it, but it's always getting back to that 3-by-1 open, which is, I think it's the best formation of football for me, at least.
Yeah.
Causes the problem.
No, there was another podcast that was talking about kind of the same thing. And they asked the coach, where are you going to place your stud receiver on the field? And I ended up commenting back, and it was kind of exactly like you said, like I want them at the boundary X. And in my opinion, and I've only played quarterback in high school, my knowledge of quarterback isn't that great, but I feel like from an offensive perspective, just exactly like you're saying, if you have a stud at X and you're running 3-by-1 open, I feel like you can dictate the terms a lot more. Talking about you reading the box, but then especially if you're a QB or a team that cues that boundary safety, I think it's really easy to, his pre-snap, post-snap process, if he's keying the boundary safety to dictate, where he wants to go with the ball.
The other thing that goes into that is in high school, because the hashes are so wide, we attack the boundary, and I want to run to the boundary, because you're never going to add an extra defender to the boundary. If you're playing against us, you have to add the extra defender, because we're going to either throw the ball that direction or we're going to run the ball that direction. And that's kind of goes back to Gus Malzahn's philosophy back when he was in high school: attack with the horizontal stretches of the field and make them defend it. And our receiver set, we're always going to put our biggest, strongest receiver into the boundary, and not necessarily the best, but he's the biggest, strongest. He causes a matchup problem. Like this year for us, he's 6'7", 220, going to Washington State on a scholarship and plays tight end. And years ago, it was another kid that was 6'3", 180, couldn't run out of the room in a week, but he was a physical mismatch. He was in the weight room, and he worked at his craft. His catch radius was really good. Our inside slot receiver would be a kid that would be more of a physical kid that could block. He might be an extra running back. If we wanted to bounce him in the backfield, we could do it. He might be our fly sweep guy. And then the other two receivers are the guys that got a little zippity doodah to them, right? So those guys, when they get going, you're going to have to cover two guys vertical that can cause you a problem. All of them, we want them to have the catch radius is way more important than maybe the overall
separation aspect.
Yeah, I'm not worried about. We tell our quarterback all the time, the little guy covered, just throw it to him, let him go get the ball, and we practice that at practice. That's one of the things we want our kids to do is, hey, I'm gonna throw the ball to you, go make the play. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but more times it does.
Yeah. What would you say throughout the years has been your greatest challenge in coaching?
What it's become is fundraising.
Ryan Shelton, please go to room 225.
Ryan Shelton in trouble.
It's that time of day. It's been fundraising. I think at the high school level, districts are having to go to different ways of funding. And we have, at Rocky, we have a phenomenal booster club. Whoever the next head coach that comes in here, we have a booster club that brings in $100,000+ a year through fundraising. And our district, some districts, they just can't anymore because of the funding from the states. They can't pay for buses or pay for uniforms or pay for helmets. And that's been the challenge. And that's the piece of being a head coach now that I think is different. Some districts, smaller districts like Cuna, maybe the Pocatello area district, I know Rigby, their school districts do a fantastic job of funding them and paying for stuff. Here in West Ada, we have to fund everything. So building a booster club, which we're blessed, we've got a phenomenal booster club, and they do a great job. The RMFA does a fantastic job of fundraising for us and making this a premier job in the state of Idaho. But I would say that's been the biggest challenge. It's not always just about the X's and O's, and we get in 3 programs, we'll have over, on average, 180 kids over 3. My biggest year was 211. in 3 programs. And I learned a long time ago, you win with numbers, right? That's success. And no matter if we have a great class, average class, if I get a lot of bodies and there's competition, it's some programs I hear coaches talk about how kids don't necessarily like that idea of having to compete. Here at Rocky, that's something that's been embedded into our standard. And our standard is, hey, you're going to compete. It's not necessarily what you did. I don't care what you did in Optimist. I don't care what you did as a freshman. What are you going to do that day, every day, when you walk out to work? And so that piece has stayed the same, but the fundraising piece has become harder and harder because the cost of a helmet, $300 some dollars. Shoulder pads anymore, 200 plus, 300 plus. And then you got reconditioning, and then a bus is $5,000 to take 54 kids someplace, and you're looking at bus costs that are just outrageous. Some buses don't drive past midnight, so you got to pay for a second bus driver. So that fundraising piece is the one thing I would say has really changed and has made it probably to be a little bit more difficult just to be head coach.
Yeah. If you're sitting down with Coach Saban, what's one question that you're going to ask Coach Saban that you're just kind of dying to know about him or his process or his operations?
I'd want to know, one, where he came up with the idea about the process. Where did you, when did it click for you? When did that click that you understood that it wasn't about the end result? Because we live in a society that isn't the norm. Everybody wants it today. Kids come out of college and they want that job that pays $80,000 to $100,000. Whereas when I came out of college, you were happy when you got a $25,000 a year, $30,000. Then when you got 40, you thought you were there, right? And I think that expectation of immediate gratification, when did he understand and what made it that way? As he started saying it's the process of every day. And was it just when he was getting those 5-star kids, or was it at some point earlier in his career? Because it's very obvious that the detail that he puts in is that's what made him him. I mean, they were so detail oriented, and I'd want to know again, what led him to that road and see if there's any similarities for myself.
Yeah. All right. Going on to Anela question of the day. I prefaced this before we hopped on. Her question was, who is your favorite friend and why?
Leslie Eve Peterson Criner is my favorite best friend in the whole world. And my stars are aligned because of her. And my son comes up every day because of her. She is phenomenal people. Couldn't love anybody more. My daughter, Nicole, my son, Matthew, they mean the world to me. When Nicole calls and just says, "Hey, Daddy, how you doing?" Talks to me, that lights my world up. Matthew is a hugger. So he comes by and every time he comes by, he gives me a hug. I'm not a hugger. He's a hugger. It's every day, right? And that's, if someone's asking me what those people mean in my life, they are the most important people. My best friend that's not family it would be a guy by the name of Mark Pittman, who I coached with. He was a basketball coach at the University of Cincinnati. He and Vincent White, who was the coach I worked with. Vincent was an All-American with John Elway at Stanford, and those guys are probably my two best friends outside of my family. Of course, I've got Joel. I love my son-in-law Joel. He's like my son, and love talking to him. And we're getting ready to get a new daughter in the family, Ivy Wang, who is just she makes my son complete. And so those people get a little emotional when I start talking about the kids. Yeah. But those are the people that they make me run.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that testimony, Coach. What does the word team mean to you?
Selflessness, number one for me. A true team isn't about a star. It's not about a scheme. It's not about anything more than a selfless direction, working for one goal. Like I've said before, collaborative effort, where I'm working with you, you're working with me. I know your strength. And when you get those kids to believe that, we have a kid named Cody Wheeler, another kid named Trevor Vaught. Cody Wheeler is a high school All-American lacrosse player, 6'3", 220 pounds. A year ago, we wanted to play him at tight end, which is what he'd like to play. We needed a left tackle because of injury. Whatever you need, Coach. That's what I teach our kids. And whenever we ask you for something, be willing to step up, because that's your chance. That's your chance to show. And Cody comes in this year. He's the tight end, fullback. about 4 games ago in the season, we lose our left guard, and we turn back to Cody, and he changed for number 10 to number 52, and I don't know, 56. I might have the number wrong, but anyway, was our left guard who was played at an all-conference, all-state level at that position. Trevor Vaughn was a kid who was a great rugby player, and I went to him and said, "Hey, we really would love for you to be on our football team, and I want to be able to do rugby punt." He came out, and he didn't have a great experience as a freshman in the program, and he's grown into 6'2", 205-pound kid, and he's a punter. We needed a defensive end. You bet, coach. Put his hand down. We need a linebacker. You bet, coach. I need to get it run down on kickoff. You bet. Those kids, that's what team means to me. They're selfless. They're committed. Rayshawn Jones, probably the best athlete in the state of Idaho. I've had Oregon, I've had Michigan, I've had Ohio State. Everybody's reached out on Rayshawn. He's going to Boise State because of the relationships with Matt Miller and the Boise State staff. He's one of those guys, "Hey, coach, I know what I'm going to do." But he's another guy. You need me to play linebacker? I play linebacker. You need me to play quarterback? I need you to line up a running back, wide receiver. He started for us at safety and then played all over on the offensive side. Popped up in many, many places within our program where that selflessness comes about. And I would say that uncommon thought that it isn't about what's in it for me. It's not about me getting the football. And what it does is the kids that aren't that way, they stand out like a bad thumb, and it shows up, and the other kids see it, and they just kind of move by, right? They move by them. And so team to me means that what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do for the team? What are you willing to do?
Yeah. If we could backtrack just a little bit, you mentioned your son-in-law, Joel Snyder.
Yep.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how are we grading Joel as a special teams coordinator?
He did a fantastic job. I'd say probably just for a guy that hadn't done it before. When he started out, I'd say he was a 5. And as he grew into the position, he became a 9. Really, Joel's extraordinarily detailed. And so if I spent the time and worked with him, and we had some other coaches that worked with him, Joel made sure our special teams hummed, and they did a good job. And of course, Joel, if a kickoff return went the other direction, he thought I was going to fire him. I said, no, that was all of us. We all have that time where the kid, we don't quite get across the message. But Joel was a good teacher. And I would say that Joel, when it was said, I can just say because of knowledge and development, if he decided he wanted to stay in coaching, he'd be a first class, anytime, any place guy. And he also coached receivers and did a great job. He learned, for a guy that was a high school offensive lineman, he learned how to coach, and he always was a great communicator with our kids. But I'd give him a high grade. I actually give him a really high grade. I'd coach with Joel in a heartbeat. And it's not just because my daughter would disown me if I didn't, but
I'll make sure I'll take this out of the podcast. We can't let this get to him. We can't let him see this.
His head, Joel's head ever grows. Joel's pretty level. He's probably
he really is
level-headed human beings I've ever met in my life. And he was always, you talk about selfless, he's selfless.
At what point in your 45-year career where you're like, oh man, I think I got this figured out. This is who I am as a coach?
When I first started, I wanted to be an offensive coordinator, and they put me on defense. And it was probably the greatest decision anyone ever did for me, because it made me see the game from the other side. And then I think it was when I was working with Phil Snow, and Phil Snow and I was learning the intricacies of defense. Phil's one of the great defensive coaches in the United States. He, I believe, is currently at Nebraska. I remember Phil talking to me about coverage and teaching kids from the offensive side. He says, that's what I'm hoping you do, is teach it from an offensive philosophy, and then understanding from Phil that I could turn that. I could flip that. I could go back to the offensive side. And I worked with a guy named Brett Pease at University of Pacific, and another guy named Larry Keck at Pacific. And those guys would actually lean on or ask questions about how I view certain things and how I would teach it. And, I learned football from both of them, both really brilliant minds. Brett is currently at Montana, I think one of the best football minds, offensive minds in the country. And I knew, being around those guys, that I wanted to be on the offensive side of the football, and that's where I would make my mark. I would say it really hit when I came back. I was at Eagle High School, and I'm sitting in a press box at Eagle High School, and I'm dialing stuff up. and I could see the field the way you're supposed to. The game slowed down. The game had really slowed down, and I think that was probably the most impactful moment. I knew then that I could do this high school thing and I could be an offensive coach. I could do the college thing and be an offensive coach, and I knew that was my gig.
Yeah, it's a good answer. Give me 5 seconds. I need to get some water. I'm over here just coughing a storm off. What is one of your favorite drills or team periods that you guys do at Rocky that you wish you started 25 years ago?
The door is now open by the main
I'll let this pass.
Yeah.
Student stores open. Favorite drills. I love I think we do a really good job of compartmentalizing different facets of the game. Like for our defensive guys, especially with young kids, you call scheme. Necessarily, when you call scheme, you don't spend enough time teaching the fits. You talk about the fits. And like I tell our guys, don't ever assume a kid understands. Don't assume that they know what a 3 technique is or an A gap. Make sure that you ask, give them a chance to respond. And there are no stupid responses. Reward them for having the ability to step up and say, hey, I got A gap. All right. I don't know what A gap is, coach. Right. And so I think our fit period on defense is probably my favorite on the defensive side of the ball. They just call a scheme, they run a play, and then they're just slow motion, right? It's just all tag, and they're just all coming into their fits, and they understand, hey, I got to be in that fit. And then you take the time to go back to that film and tell them, what'd that guard do? He blocked down. Well, then where should your fit be? I should be fitting B gap, coach. All right, then get your fanny in that B gap. Let's go. And then to see it translate as the week goes by, to me, that was probably the most effective defensive drill. Offensively, breaking us down into the different aspects of screen game, for example, and then teaching coaches where to stand. If you're running a perimeter screen or any screen and you have an offensive line coach that's standing in the back of the offense and coaching it, then he's not coaching. He's just watching. And so I love watching our coaches get in position. So our offensive line coach, if we're running, we call it a run and shoot screen, boundary kick with the tackle, big baby, the receiver come back, and then maybe some type of fly action away and then snap the ball out. That offensive line coach should be standing on that sideline and coaching, are you coming flat? Because if you gain a yard, the screen's dead. And watching coaches move as we went through that period to be where they had to be to coach their kid. As a head coach, that was probably one of my favorite periods of all, just breaking things down into different aspects. Double ball drill if you're an option team, RPO team, double ball drill where the ball's handed off and then you're flipping a ball to the quarterback and he's coming up and throwing the RPO. I think those type of things, compartmentalizing the different aspects of what we're asking them to do, those are my favorite drills. I think that we get too much caught up into just calling plays sometimes, and we don't teach the kids how and why and what they're supposed to do within that scheme to make it really effective. And when you look at our play call sheet's big, and everybody thinks we're so diverse, but the reality is it's all built around offensive line scheme, again, that piece, and then our kids understanding how to do that regardless of how the picture looks.
You mentioned, a successful program having strength in numbers because it generates competition. How do you guys, can you kind of break down your weekly practice structure?
Yes. And it's changed. This is when you talk about things that have changed over the years. It used to be you walk out and you do film breakdown. Coaches meet. We meet every Sunday morning. We go to, there's church, guys will go in and out of church, but we get our game plan put together. We send everything out to the kids Sunday evening. We used to come in and watch the game film on Saturday with the kids and put that game to bed. But I found that the kids coming back on Saturday, all they want to do is see themselves on film. So I said, let's do this as coaches. Let's take some time to go through and pick out 15, 20 plays. That's what you're going to teach. Come back on Monday. So our Monday, right after school, the kids go into a film session. That film session was corrections and celebrations. So coaches could show, offensive coordinator might bring everybody in. They show off 2 or 3 plays, they get all jazzed, and they break out, and then they go to their different rooms. And then each coach you have 30 minutes, and that in 30 minutes, you're teaching. It's right outside. I'm seeing where they're coming in right now. So you have 30 minutes of teaching. That's about the attention span. I remember when I went from coaching to teaching, I used to, as a coach, think, man, you bring them in, you're in there for an hour, right? And I remember a professor telling me that the average adult, if you have a hour-long meeting with them, will walk away with one thing in long-term memory. Will walk away with maybe 4 things in short-term memory that, if it's not repeated, is lost within 48 hours. And so I remember thinking about that and about how our meetings went and how much time we have, and how do we do an install, how do we teach. And so I tell our coaches, you got 30 minutes, and you better have 4 or 5 things in there that impacts. If Keanu's walking into, you're walking into my meeting, you're going to be able to learn, on your play, and then somebody else's play at maybe a different position. You're hearing what coach is talking about, and the coach is making that an emphasis. And then from there, we went to on the field for install on Monday, and that was just helmets and shorts. That might be anywhere from 40 minutes to 45 minutes when you talk about warm up. We'd always have an individual period where we get quarterbacks warmed up so you could throw and do drills. And then we went into the walkthrough piece where we're installing. And as the play's installed, then you run the play. Play's installed, you run the play. Play's installed, you run it. And then it finishes with a script. And that script might be all the new install and or corrections from the previous game. And then once they completed that, then they went from that into another 30-minute session of opponent film, and they watch it. So total time would be about an hour and 55 minutes max that we have the kids on a Monday. And so that made it something that was, our football acumen started growing. Our kids who don't, again, watch football on Mondays, they're learning football. And so when it showed with our kids on the field, we also lifted. I should have said this too. We lift right after school. We had a 30-minute lifting session. We had a school at 2:45, and so they would be. You'd have your film session then started at 3:20, and then 3:20, and so forth. Right. So, which each of those periods very specific and designed to really teach the kids so they understand not just how, but they understand the why. And so we're really emphasis on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're full gear. That's not what used to be full gear. A couple of years ago at a football camp, I said, "Hey guys, I went you to full gear." And one of my kids walked over and he went like this. "You want this on my leg, coach?" Because they make them wear girdles already, right? "You want this on my knees? This is going to protect me." And I said, "Well, yeah, that's the rule, right? That's what you got to wear on Fridays. Coach, this doesn't make me a better player. Let me be comfortable and I'll play better for you." And I remember walking away thinking, no. But I also walked away giving it some thought. Next day, came back and said, "All right, you guys can wear the shorts and the girdles underneath." So we're full gear. It's thud. Nobody goes to the ground. We make that an emphasis with our kids that show your athleticism, stay up. The younger programs struggle with that a lot more than the older kids do. But we'd have 2 periods. So our Tuesday practice would have warm up, it would have walkthrough, then walkthrough 15 minutes of warm up 8 minutes, and dynamic warm up. And then we move from that into individual 1, individual 2, and then we'd go to a group period. Group period might be the screen period. It might be a routes on air. It might be a run period where we're against the scout team defense. We're running just fits. Again, people just getting to where they're supposed to be, change up the different looks. Each of those periods is 8 minutes long, so you got to be very scripted and planned as you go into it so that you're getting exactly what you want. And for us offensively, it might be our cut scheme. It might be our horn scheme. It might be our ISO scheme. We're emphasizing in those periods, those two for us when we had the run periods, group periods. So the line might be doing that way. Routes on air are going on with the wide receivers and quarterbacks. Then from there, you go into 3 team periods. Team periods are a total of 16 snaps. And we try to get 16 snaps in 11 minutes. And so you're moving at a quick pace. I tell the coaches, don't stop a period. Don't ask for a repeat. Coach it off the film. We film with drones, which is beautiful, right? The best film in the world for teaching. And then we finish each of those periods. We'll have special teams, especially since I became the special teams coordinator when Joel retired, and I took over our special teams. So we'd have punt would be on Tuesday, and we did that rugby punt formation spread stuff. I think I shared with you that when I saw you the spring, and we were really successful with that, which made it something that nobody else did. So we were able to bring a little bit something to the table that the opponent had to prepare for. We also had a period for kickoff cover, kickoff return, and then we had a 2-point period. where we would take, and all those were 5-minute periods, very scripted, looking for certain things so our kids understood. And then we'd always finish then with one more team period. The last team period would be more pass and or field position based. Early in the season, we go good on good. As the season progresses, we'd break off into scout teams and have scout teams in preparation, knowing that those kids had to get certain aspects of it. And something different in our program when our second or third kid is getting scout team reps and not getting first team. If we're playing against you and we get to that point in the game where our backups are going in, they're running your offense. They're running your defense at you because they've done it all week, right? And so we made that, again, another way for us to get our kids involved. Football is a terrible game unless you get to play it, right? And I want you to be able to do what you do. I might be up on you by 40, and I want my kid who's the third string kid to be able to go out and run the offense the way he did it all week, just because that's his right. He has that right to do it. So we're not necessarily going to pull off the dogs. I've had a few coaches tell me after games, "Gosh, you guys ran that. You're running our stuff at the end of the game." Yep, you guys did it better than us, right? So that's a great testament to our kids and how they buy in. And then on Thursdays we go through a script. We do call outs and then we go through a script, a special team script with plays mixed in. And then from there, we go through a 20-minute walkthrough, last-minute corrections, last-minute deals, get them out, want them to go see a sub-varsity game. Friday, pregame meal, walkthrough, special teams call-outs, offense walkthrough, defense walkthrough, and then 5:20, they're on the field doing their early outs and rest, get ready for that ball game.
You got that down to a T, man.
It works. It really works.
Yeah.
It is grinding. I think the biggest thing, if I was giving advice to a coach, is don't underestimate the idea of teaching your kids a why. And that football acumen piece, my coaches give me a bad time as I use the word acumen, right? But I tell them that's important. Our kids don't watch football, and they watch the big hits, and that's about it, right? And when they're watching film, all they're doing is watching themselves. We got to teach them how to watch film. You got to teach them what they're looking for, and then taking the time to show them why we see it this way. This is what we're trying to do. It's made us a better football program.
You mentioned earlier, you're talking about uncommon. What else do you guys do as a program to, establish a sense of shared leadership within the team? And I guess, how do you guys go about your captain process? Because I think that's always unique on, what different coaches do.
So our captain process is based off of your involvement in the off-season program, getting kids that want to get up at 5 o'clock. And you came out one time, you saw us in the weight room, and we've got anywhere from.
It was cold as hell, man. It was cold.
It's a cold day, and they come pulling in, and they're the first ones there. And I always tease them. I said, just think your buddy's at home. He's sleeping the extra hour. You're here working because you're going to get better. You don't get better when you're sleeping. I tell them all the time, there are no days off in football. Get yourself there, get to work. And when we're getting 80-plus kids in a weight room at that time of the day, and that's our those are non-varsity and or the basketball or winter sports kids, which our kids play multiple sports and they do a good job. And that's great numbers. And those guys that are in there, what I'm watching is the guy that walks over and he sees a kid not lifting correctly, and he comes over and he peer teaches, right? He's teaching that peer connection, and it's not just about his lift. If you were to walk in the weight room and watch Jax Tanner work out or Rowan Rupp, those are guys that are going on Division I programs, and they're walking over and teaching sophomore how to do a lift and tell them, hey, if you just, shoot your hips at this point, or if you were shrugging those shoulders, and that peer teaching along with our weight coaches in the weight room, those are the guys we want to be our captains. We went away from the popularity contest, right? It's not about the most popular kid gets to be the captain. I'm looking for that guy that when he is there, he goes back to selflessness. He's willing to give himself 100% to his teammates, because those are the guys they'll follow. Normally, a transfer kid can't be a captain. Sean came over, got to us in June, and he walks in the weight room, and from day one, he was that guy. And our captains, our 4 kids that we had selected as a staff to be our captains, they came and said, Rashawn needs to be a captain, coach. And they had ownership. And I let our captains, they make every decision. What we're going to eat for dinner, how we travel. We did a event during the summer. It was their event. They wanted to go out to the military base and do an obstacle course. Some teams, they go, hey, I want to go to the water slide. Our kids are looking at things that are team developing. And again, I think that goes back to that approach that we have of being all in for everyone else, not just for yourself. And so that's what we're looking for.
Yeah. You talked about Uncommon. You talked about doing going to the military obstacle course. Any other things and just being at Boise State, you guys always came to team camp. Is there any other things that you guys do that might be unique to help with building trust and cohesion within the team?
So again, going back to our seniors, I started when came back as the head coach. I did it before up until 2016. I meet with the seniors and we talk about what leadership is. And we go through and I talked to them. I remember one lesson was I had a picture of a pride of lions. And I said, who do I want to play with? And they're looking at me, what are you talking about? Lions don't play. And I went through this story about, the lion isn't the strongest animal on earth, right? The tiger, there's a grizzly bear. Those are animals that are vicious and fierce. You watch a pride of lions or a pod of killer whales, they do things for each other and they're all on the same page. So I said, what do you see in this picture? And kids looked at it and they're all looking at something in the distance. And I said, so let me show you the video. And I show the video and it shows one lioness standing up and her eyes focus in the distance. And all of a sudden, all the lions rose and they were all looking in that direction. I said, so what does that tell you about leadership? And they're talking about, they're all on the same page. I said, you guarantee they're all on the same page. They know that either there's something they got to go eat or there's something they got to defend against. It's in that they got their eyesight and they're all on that same page. Our leadership needs to make sure that we understand that it's not about who the strongest lioness is. It's about who is the weakest lion and then getting them to be on board with us. And so we go through these leadership deals where in every weight room, there's that kid jabbers too much or talks too much and he finds a way not to be there. I never had to call a kid and say, hey, where are you at? You're not in the weight room. Our kids are dialing on, hey, you're late. You need to make sure you're here. Our system of cleaning your slate is something that our seniors handled where you running late, you coming into practice late, or maybe you got held up in a class and you didn't call. It's all about communication. It's not hard to say, hold on, excuse me, I need to send a text and say, hey, I'm going into this meeting with this person. And then our kids, if you came in late, our seniors after practice, they're grabbing the kid going, hey, let's go, let's clean your slate. And it's 100 yards to hit and get it, right? And it's not me berating them or me asking, the kids were asking. That's when we knew that we had something that was really different. I'm not having to be the clothes police, or I'm not having to be the time police. Our kids, our seniors have that expectation, and that standard then is passed down to the next class, to the next class. Isaiah Reed, who was National Football Foundation honoree, had to make a statement what it meant to him, and he talked about that brotherhood and that standard and the lessons that were taught and how it affected him in his decisions in his life. And his growth and being given that opportunity as opposed to me doing it. Does that make sense? I would say those are the things that make us different. And I would tell every coach, look at your kids and come up with something. It doesn't need to be uncommon. To come up with something that gives them something to shoot for, one, but make sure that the bottom line is about creating the best young man you can possibly have in your community, whether it's the Rocky Mountain High School community, Meridian area community, our football team community. I want the best young man, and I want it to be the guy that cares about not the best player, but also the guy that needs that extra help. Are you willing to go put your arm around that guy and help him out?
What do you do? What's the communication look like after your team faces a tough setback or a bad loss?
Honesty, right? Being honest. Hey, we didn't do these things well. It's not a beration. It's not a time to berate them. We've talked constantly here. It's about what we do next. It's the next thing. So I was saying it's never as good as you think, never as bad as you think. And there's been times I walked off a football field and said, man, we just played lights out. And then you go watch the film and you go, how did we win that game? Right? And how did we get that done? I look at a loss as an opportunity to learn. Again, that's one of those things. Nick Saban said, don't miss out on a good opportunity or a good loss. Don't miss out on that opportunity. We all are going to fail. And how do we approach that failure to get better in the next one? Well, those hard losses are the ones that happen, like we got beat by Rigby in the semifinals and your kids are crying, and being able to look at them and tell them how proud you are of them and what they've done and how far they've come as a team, what it meant to be in that brotherhood and what that standard is that you pass forward. And then to see those kids rise from that sorrow to being able to go hug a teammate or tell an underclassman, don't forget this moment, right? And so for me, that's it's going full circle, coming back. The lesson is don't forget the moment and look at that thing. Remember it. I always take a picture of the scoreboard when we lose, and then I put it in my phone because I know at some point that's going to come back up. And I have done that. And I remember in 2015, we got hammered by Mountain View. I think we had 8 turnovers in the first half. The worst, everything.
That's got to be a record in the first half.
In the first half, we've fumbled the opening kickoff. We fumbled the first play from scrimmage. You know, my nephew, Callan Criner, Callan on a reverse. He gets the ball and then he tries to pitch it to another guy instead of just taking the loss. And it just snowballed. Everything possible snowballed. I think we were on the field for maybe 12 plays in that half. I mean, it was just one of those nightmare. Just couldn't get off the field. Go in at halftime, tell the kids that we got to get this, we got to win second half. That's our focus. 0-0, no focus. And we won the second half. And then to take that, the picture of their scoreboard with them celebrating in front of it, and then just showing our team and said, if you need anything else to get yourself ready to play, this is the memory. What are the lessons you learned from that day to this day? How do we best grow from that? And we just kicked the dog out of them in the state championship. And our kids at the end of the game were on the 1-yard line, and where they ran one in on us with a huge lead with their starters still in the field. Our kids, we hand the ball off to our running back and he takes 2 steps and takes a knee. And if he scores that touchdown, he breaks the school state record for touchdowns in a game. And he took a knee and he turns and looks at me on the sideline and points at me. You talk about a point of, hey, the lessons, it's gone full circle. We've learned from it. Those moments, that's what we're trying to get to. That's how we teach our kids to get to the next thing and then remember what it's like to be there.
Yeah. No, that's a cool story. What was the running back's name?
His name was Roper. Last name was Roper. Jake Roper was his name. And Jake rushed on the day, he had like 273 yards rushing in that game. And he scored 4 touchdowns, and that would have been his 5th, which would have been the state record in a game.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's not
I'll take that.
That's not a bad day.
Yeah.
Not a bad day.
Coach, is there any untraditional stats that you guys might chart as a coaching staff? I know one thing I thought that was unique was when I was at my time at Boise was one thing that they put an emphasis on was QB hits. Like if we could touch the QB 10 times, we would affect how he plays the game, his comfortability in the pocket. When I talked to a basketball coach, they charted how many deflected or tipped passes.
Right.
From a defensive standpoint. Is there any untraditional stats that you guys might chart or any untraditional views of the game that you want to share?
So we chart production. So production is what do you do every time you touch the football? And you might be the starting running back in game 1 and your production's 4.3 yards a carry, which is a good day. But we got another kid who's got maybe less touches, but he's got like at 9 or 11 or 12. And so we base week to week who's getting the football off of that production chart. And so we'll go into a game and say, okay, Ray Sean's going to touch the ball 14 times. Oakley, Baxter, our tailback, he's got to touch the ball 17 times. And as our offensive coordinator's calling plays upstairs, he's marking down. He has actually another assistant with him who's actually marking down who touched it. And so we keep tabs of that. So we're wanting to make sure those guys, they've earned that based on production. And defensively, it's purely about time of possession. We got to get off the field. And I don't know if that's anything different from anyone else, but we talk about third downs, and third downs are money downs, and get off the field, and we want to reward them for that. But I think the biggest one that a lot of people don't do is the production one.
How do you go about, and this is kind of talking postseason here, when you finish up. How do you go about, your self-scout process as a coach? Like once the season's done, take some time to yourself, enjoy the holidays. When you come back, are you thinking X's and O's? Are you thinking just your systems and operations? What does that look like?
Well, I'm sick. I told you that's why I'm not going to be coaching next season. And I'm already going back and started my cut-ups. And so I go through and do cut-ups, and then I want to look at production. We do a cut-up of, for example, our horn scheme, and I want to know I pull every single one, good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. I'm going to put them all down. And then I'm going to start running numbers, and those numbers are based on production within that scheme, and then an evaluation of what made it good. Is it the personnel? Was it the scheme? Does that best? I want that information, so does it best fit what we do the following year? And again, I'm not coming back to do it, but I'm still going through that process, and I've already started pulling my cut-ups up, and that self-evaluation of us is going back and then analyzing, did we run the play enough? Did we, for example, I keep going back, horn was a new scheme for us this year, and horn was about going into our last game.
What is horn? You mentioned that a couple times. What is horn?
So horn it was made famous by Chris Alt and at the Nevada pistol offense, and horn is it's a pin and pull perimeter outside zone play. Now it's if you've run wing T, it's been in the wing T offense. Different programs have a horn play. Horn for us was averaging over 8 yards a carry, and I'll go back and I'm going to look at that schematically. I'm going to look at it from a personnel standpoint, and I'm going to evaluate, did we run it enough, not run it enough? That goes back to, and then what formations were we able to hide it with? How many different variations did we have or do we have? And why did that work? And then I go back and I'll look at the schematics of the defenses that we ran against. Is it a tight front? Is it an even, like an over or under front? What made that scheme as effective? I understand how the scheme works against different fronts, but sometimes we'll stretch it and we'll try something different. Was that based on our personnel? Did we have to overload it? Did we have to get to an unbalanced? What were the things that we drew upon? And then if I was coaching next year, I'd go back then and start balancing that with, what do I have personnel-wise? Do I have a Cody Wheeler? Do I have a fullback that can slide into that role? Or am I more of going to be a 3-wide receiver, 4-wide receiver set? And then how best will that fit us going through? Our RPO package, can a quarterback throw a search route on the backside of our buck series? Can he throw a glance route off our zone series? We run the duo package like Wake Forest does with the slow right in the line of scrimmage, and we're looking for the late throw up the field. How many times were we affected by linemen downfield? How many times did our quarterback make the call? Did he make the correct call? Those are the things I'm looking for, and then putting it together. Then again, trying to match that with what next year's personnel would be. And again, I'm not coming back, so I've already started that process, right? And then from there, I go back through and start looking through old playbooks, and everything we do is on PowerPoints. And so putting together different packages or getting in my first down playbook package and drawing the different pieces out that I think that fit, and then getting that to coaches. If I was coming back, our walkthrough would be starting, our winter walkthrough would start right after the Christmas break. So we would start meeting with quarterbacks and going through that process with them. Might be a once a week, depends on what the winter schedule looks like. Might be twice a week. It might be going back every year. We go back and teach them basic coverage, understanding of defense. And we just start completely over with the quarterback so that by the time that kid's a senior, he can walk out on the field. He knows it better than our coaches do.
You are sick if you're going through that whole process and not coming back.
Right? It's the details. It's the devil is in the details. And for me, when people ask me what my hobby is football. And so my family and then my football, and that's fishing would be third. And so, I mean, I really love to sit down and look at the X's and O's. I love going out and visiting different colleges and getting ideas, and then seeing how I'd implement it, and then bouncing ideas off guys I've coached with in the past, and just kind of see how they react. And the other thing I do every year too is I'll go talk to a guy who coaches in another sport. It might be team building, like our track coach here is really successful, so I want to spend days with him, and I'll go in and talk to him. So how do you do that? You got 200 kids out for track. What's your process? How do you go about getting those kids so they all feel like because not every one of them can run the 100. They're not going to all score points for you. And how do you keep that many kids involved? And how do you best grow that?
That's awesome. I like that you do that.
I even spent time with our choir director and our band director, going in and saying, hey, what are some of the things you guys do that you really like? And I think you draw upon guys from different fields.
Yeah. What were some of the insights that they shared with you that you might have used?
Well, the choir director is all about having fun. It was about having fun. We work hard. There's an expectation and a standard that's set. And when I'm sitting talking to her, she's asking me questions about, well, how do you get your guys to do, what is your process and how do you get those guys to get up in the weight room? And then she's going through what she does and learning, if I drew on anything, her and our band director, both of them, letting the kids have ownership, right? Our team captains, that's something that I grew with since I came to Rocky was, it's not necessarily best that it's my idea. It's me throwing the ideas out and then asking our kids, what do you like, right? What do you think would be effective? And then letting them pick and choose. And those were all things that I learned from somebody that wasn't a football coach.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, that was kind of, when I stepped away from Oregon State, it's like I still wanted to learn and grow and, soak up as much knowledge as I can if I ever do get back into coaching. So this has been awesome for me just as far as going around. This is my 18th, I guess, episode you could call it. And just it's an hour to an hour and a half of professional development for me, just learning from other people, their experiences, their insights, their wisdom. So I really appreciate your time. And that's cool that you go out and seek, experiences and wisdom from other people, not even affiliated with sports. So I think that's really cool. Is there anything to conclude, any final advice on coaching, teaching, leadership for the good of the community that you want to share?
Biggest thing is, remember, it's for the kids, right? We're there for the kids and the families, and don't be afraid to hold kids to a standard. And that standard can be something that they can find joy in. It doesn't necessarily have to just be the grind all the time, the grind. It's okay to hold them to that. And then probably from a coaching standpoint, know that you as the coach are the one that put the limitations on the kids. If you have a program and you're willing to say, I've been around guys, well, we can't do that. I remember we put in the fly sweep. And I remember talking to, it was a high school coach in, I can't think of his name, Foothill High School in Northern California. And he had done some things on fly sweep. And he said the first 48 hours, once you put it in, you're going to go, this sucks. But he says, you got to just stay with it. And the more they do it, the better they'll get. And then doing that and then telling my coaches, hey, it's going to look like crap. All right, it's going to look terrible, but we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep grinding it. And let's make sure that we always have something in our mind that lets those kids, that we let them use their imagination to show off their skill set. Find it. Every kid can do something. And find out what that is. And if he's a receiver, can't catch the cold, but he can block downfield, by golly, get him on a field, let him play. Don't just always pick the one guy and say he's the guy. If you looked at Rocky Mountain High School, one of the things I think people will tell you is that we play a lot of kids. And those kids, that's why we get numbers, is because they see there's a end result that's going to be positive for them.
Awesome, Coach. Well, I appreciate your time, man. That was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences with me. And most likely going to start posting some stuff next week, Monday.
Okay.
I'll make sure, I don't know if you got any social media, but I'll start tagging some Rocky Mountain athletics, Rocky Mountain football. Do you have social media?
Instagram.
You a big TikTok guy?
No, I'm not TikTok. I'm Instagram.
Okay.
Just because it's really funny because Nicole puts me in it. And then when my name is out in it, I get people were sending me stuff and everybody's asking me to follow. And I go by a different name. So Carl von Bocklenberg is that's my,
you're going to have to text me that.
Yeah. It's a little different deal. Are you on Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make sure to, I'll text you on the side, but I'll make sure to tag some Rocky football accounts, Rocky athletic accounts.
Yeah, that's great. Or my daughter shows me anything and everything is out there. So
I'm going to tag Nicole and Joel as well.
They all make fun of me because I always called it, for a lot of years, I'd say, well, I'm not an Insta chat. And they said, it's not Insta chat. And I said, well, you're chatting. No, Dad, you're not. So, but I'm limited, very limited on that aspect. So if you send it to them, they'll get it to me.
Awesome. And then I'll make sure to send you the link so you can listen to your interview.
My wife will like that. Still
all right,
think
Coach.
that's cool.
Well, I appreciate your time, man.
Yams, thank you. And I wish you all the best. If you need anybody from this area and you want information, connections, let me know. There's some really good coaches over here.
Yeah, I for sure will tap into that, and I'll give you a call on the side as far as to get some more people scheduled.
Sounds good. Appreciate
All
you,
right,
man.
Coach. Thank you.
Have a really happy holiday.
Same to you, Coach. I'll see
Bye-bye.
ya. Bye.